Shelby County School District administrators say that they would never let a child go hungry if he or she doesn't have the money to cover lunch. They're given a sack lunch instead. Now, students tell me they call it the lunch of shame.
Iris Martinez says she is outraged to learn her daughter's school literally snatched away food from her daughter's fourth grade friend because her account reached a zero balance.
They are taking lunches out of the hands of very young children. They're humiliating them in front of their friends.
The last thing you do is confiscate lunches, especially in a public setting in front of peers. So I think that was a really poor idea.
I was like really embarrassed when I walked out of there. And then like my friends, she looked at me and she's just like, where's your lunch tray? And like they didn't give it to me.
The policy of taking lunches away from kids is ridiculous because no matter if they're 5 or they're 17 years old, it's not their responsibility. It's not their fault that their parents aren't paying the bills or can't pay the bills.
Welcome back to The Ed Show. This is a story that gets my blood boiling. Austerity. Haven't we gone too far in this country? Austerity is the reason kids across America are having school lunches literally ripped from their hands and thrown into the garbage in front of their peers. Sometimes it's because their parents, well, they forgot to pay. Sometimes their parents don't have the wherewithal to pay. In Salt Lake City's school district in Utah, dozens of children had their lunches taken away because their parents were behind on payments. Now, the story made national news, and the district has since apologized. Administrators vow that they're going to change this, and so the policy, this is never going to happen again, they say. Well, this is happening, my friends, all across the country, and it is absolutely shameful. Remember, we are living in the United States of America. We can do a lot of good things, and here in the heartland, it's happening. In Minnesota, if a student fails to come up with just 40 cents, they can be denied or receive what's called a downgraded lunch. Some school districts will send children home with a verbal warning for parents. Now, other times, students are branded with a hand stamp that says lunch or money. And you know what happens? The other kids in the school see that. Now, what's uplifting about that? Just down the road here in Fergus Falls, Minnesota, I have heard stories of school teachers using money from their own pocketbook to pay for the children's lunches to spare them the humiliation from the other kids so they don't get that stamp on their hand. We're not a third world country yet, but we're trying to get there. This is what happens when you cut essential programs like SNAP to the total of $8 billion. And you give subsidies to oil companies, and you allow corporations to park their money offshore and not pay their fair share. Hell, let's take it out on the kids at school. Let's stamp their ham. Remember, they're takers. This is what Paul Ryan calls the takers. This is what happens when there is a culture developing to cut everything, and now it's down to the elementary school level, humiliating children for the socioeconomic situation that they were born into. When was the last time on the face of this earth you could pick your parents? I think we need to wake up to this story, and I think we need to pay attention to the potential damage that we are doing to kids, and I think austerity has gone too far. Do I think parents should pay for their kids' lunches? Yes, I do. Do I think that there are some parents out there across America who can't afford it? Yes, I do. But I don't think that we should throw the kids under the bus and stamp them. Before you know it, they're going to be stamping their forehead. Maybe it'll be a comical thing in the schools. I find it absolutely disgusting. Joining me now on a rapid response panel is famous chef and food activist Tom Colicchio and also child psychologist Jennifer Harstein. Great to have both of you with us tonight. Tom, you first. I want your reaction to the story. You have been active. You have done wonderful things fighting hunger in this country. What is your response, sir, when you hear about school districts throwing kids' lunches out because they may come from a background that they can't afford it on that particular day.
Sure. You know, my mother ran a school lunch program in Elizabeth, New Jersey, where I grew up. And so this isn't new. She's told me stories about kids who got to the cash register. They didn't have the money on their cards. But the policy there was to make sure the kids were fed. And my mother made sure that happened. And I think partly because she was a mother first. And so she understood the importance of making sure that kids had food and they had proper nutrition. And I think we can focus on school lunch, but we also need to focus on breakfast. There's a real move now to getting breakfast in first period. And these are the programs that really, really work. We know when kids show up in school and they're hungry, they can't learn. And so, and they act out and they act up. And so if we want kids that are better educated, it starts with nutrition.
You know, a kid on an empty stomach is not going to be productive in the educational system. That has been proven. The bottom line here is this is going to take a real national lift to turn this around, Tom. How do you combat this? How do you turn this around? How do you reverse thinking on this?
Well, you know, I think that the sort of liberal idea to sort of take care of people, that's a good instinct. But let's look at some facts here. Recently, No Kid Hungry, SOS No Kid Hungry, commissioned Deloitte to do a study. And they found that kids that get breakfast in first period, not before the bell, in first period, their math scores go up by 17%. That's a big number. And so if we're falling behind in math scores in the United States, we need to make sure that kids are properly nourished when they go to school. You know, there's a whole humiliation factor as well when kids have to show up before school. Those are the poor kids. They're labeled poor. Plus, it's very difficult to get there. Mass transit isn't running. And so we find that moving breakfast to after the bell or in first period really works. And so we've got to actually arm ourselves with some better data and really show that these programs work. And they do. Yeah. And so if we want kids to perform better in school, proper nutrition is as important as a desk or as a book, and it needs to be treated the same way.
Throwing the food out the window because the kids can't pay for it right in the line, I think, is terribly wrong-headed. Jennifer, what effects does this kind of humiliation have on kids in the immediate and then in the long term?
Well, I mean, it's huge. You know, we have to think about the fact that shaming a child is going to make going to school very hard. They're not only being shamed in front of their peers, they're being shamed by the adults who are supposed to be taking care of them. So here we have a situation where are they safe? The adults are shaming them. Their friends might make fun of them. We're going to create a system where they don't want to go to school, and that's going to start young. And then we're going to perpetuate this cycle of uneducated, unskilled people because they're not getting the education they need to do anything and further their lives in any way.
Doesn't it make kids very self-conscious to have some kind of mark on them, that there would be an element of embarrassment, and it would possibly show them in a way to learn how to be very shy and to not reach their potential, so to speak?
Absolutely. I mean, if they have to walk around with, you know, it's kind of like the scarlet letter, but it's a scarlet letter of being hungry. And so here they are, everybody can see that. And all that they're going to notice is, well, why do you have a stamp and why don't I have a stamp? And, oh, that must mean you're different than me. And again, this kind of, we live in this bullying culture to a certain degree. They're going to get picked on. They're going to be ostracized. They're going to be pushed out of the way. And why are they going to want to learn? They're going to be so focused on kind of wanting to hide that they're not going to speak up in class. They're not going to stand out. And they're really going to, you know, shrivel. And we do know that with brains that are developing, they need the nutrition just to, you know, learn, be present, and be able to be most effective in a classroom. So all of that together is going to really make them shirk away from school.
Tom, it is also about the money, isn't it? I mean, you can't cut $8 billion out of the SNAP program and expect that it's going to be everything okay in our school systems.
No, I mean, there are some programs, you know, again, when we're talking about school lunch, we also have to acknowledge the fact that kids in the summer are skipping out completely on meals, and there are some summer programs. And you know, looking at SNAP, there are some programs where if a kid can't get to an area where they're feeding people for various reasons, we got to get the food to the kids, not the kids to the food. And so, taking that additional money and adding it to SNAP is a very good way to combat the issues of not having food in the summer as well. So yeah, you know, it is an issue of money, but in the long run, kids that are educated are going to perform well. They're going to actually do well. They're going to pay taxes when they grow up. And so it's penny wise and pound foolish to actually start cutting these programs.
And they're not going to be emotionally scarred, and I don't say that lightly. Tom Colicchio, child psychologist, Jennifer Harstein, I appreciate your time tonight. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Ed.